Undefeated national champions, fourth time in 5 years for the Ferris State Bulldogs.
Today's guest on the show is the head coach at Ferris State University, Tony Annese. Talk about a dynasty. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 out of the last 5 years they've been national champions. In 2025, they went 16-0 and scored 844 points. That's an NCAA record. And here's the crazy part. They do it while constantly losing guys to big-time Division I football programs. You got players like Trinidad Chambers, who goes to Ferris State, develops, wins a national championship, goes to Ole Miss, and balls out this year. I want to know how you build a culture so strong that even when the stars leave, the standard never drops. Today's guest on the Left Hash Call is one of the most dominant program builders in modern college football. Before taking over in Big Rapids, he built championship teams at the high school level, most notably at Muskegon High School, then won a championship at Grand Rapids Community College. At Ferris, he's helped turn the Bulldogs into a Division II powerhouse, winning 4 of the last 5 national championships, and this past season going a perfect 16-0. The head football coach at Ferris State, Tony Annese. How are you today, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Well, before we hopped on here, I said congratulations as well. I want to wish you congratulations again on another fantastic season. But before we get going today, how are you and how has life been looking for you lately after another title run and getting into the off season here?
Yeah, you have to lecture yourself a little bit. At least I do, because I'm a psycho when it comes to being competitive. So lecture yourself to make sure you kind of, appreciate what was achieved. So I try to tell myself probably the first couple of weeks, wake up and say national champs every time you wake up, And I was hoping that would last a little bit longer, but about 14 days and the whole feeling of now recruiting and putting a class together, and we sign tomorrow. And so it really, I know this is nuts, but it really transitions into 2026 fast, way too fast for my liking. So there are events that bring you back, where, you think, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. But for the most part, with the way the dynamics of college football are now, it's trying to get portal guys, just to, not to say we get a bunch of portal guys, but just to maybe help here and there. And then then signing day comes quick. So January is probably the toughest month for a Division II college football coach, in my opinion.
Yeah. When you're talking about all of these championship teams that you have, is each one unique, or are there certain themes that really remain true? Or is it truly each team is like their own separate beast?
Yeah, obviously there's themes that, there's some common, like philosophies and common, systems offensively and defensively and special teams. So there is a level of commonality, but also like every team from a personality perspective is different. I can say this without any doubt that this group was the best group of young men, regards to just having smooth running all the way through, no discipline issues off the field or on the field for that matter. Just a great group of young men. It was really wild to see these guys achieve what they achieved, because there was so much doubt going into the year with the number of kids we lost to the portal, to FBS school. So, I was paranoid, scared, worried, wondering, how we going to get this thing rolling, or could continue to get it rolling. And, then we had, some really young guys come to the forefront and play great football. And then, losing 5, starters to FBS schools, 2 offensive linemen to Big Ten schools, receiver to North Texas, a running back to West Virginia. And then, the last one that everybody knows is the quarterback to Ole Miss. And so then you're like, whoa, I mean, think about all those 5 guys if they were here in 25, but and then we move forward and break the all-time scoring record in the history of college football. It's like, now scoring 52.8 points a game helps, but also having 16 games helps to break that all-time record. But it's pretty wild to think about that these guys achieved that. And then defensively, the same deal, just crazy amount of, just overcoming obstacles and putting a group together. At one point in time, we're starting 2 true freshmen at corner, and it's like, just what we did was just amazing. So the guys, the players, the coaches, everybody was just unbelievable.
I want to talk about the portal a little bit and kind of your philosophy and how you've seen that. But before we do that, I want to talk about Trinidad real quick because, his story obviously has been well documented now, in the national, the national level as far as coverage is concerned. To see a guy that you recruited and brought in and won a championship with you and then go and, go as far as winning the Sugar Bowl. What was that like for you? I'm curious, and being able to go there and see all of that unfold.
Yeah. I was at the Fiesta Bowl, so I show up and of course they lose then, but no, I don't think it was my fault that they lost. That was a great game and Miami played great. And I thought Trinidad and Ole Miss played great. So it was just one of those games that comes down to the wire and someone, I guess, has to lose, unfortunately. But just looking back at it, loving every bit of that human being, like such a great attitude. I don't think anybody has ever said, oh, Trinidad Chambliss, isn't anything but a great person, like all the way through it. I've known him for a long, long time, even before he came to Ferris. And you could just tell, watching him play high school basketball, he was very unselfish. He was very driven. He was trying to get the best out of himself and his teammates. I mean, the list goes on for who he was off the field and off the court and on. And so that goes to, his parents and how he was raised. And then, he got here. He was just, way underdeveloped. Go back and look at some of his interviews at Forest Hills Northern, and you're like, oh my gosh, that guy looks like a little baby, and so way underdeveloped. And then, a lot of guys, in the instant gratification world that we live in, a lot of guys are like, oh, I got to get out of here because I'm not getting validated by playing time, So he didn't play, and it took him a while to play. But the greatest lesson for young people is that he never stopped growing. So a lot of young people need to be validated by, a pat on the back and, oh, I'm going to play you a lot. And he didn't need that. He knew what it took to grow without, being the guy. And that's awesome. That's such a important lesson for young people. So, it took him a while to play, and he was here 4 years, and he did start every game in 2024. A lot of people kind of get that confused. Him and Carson were sharing reps, but he did start every game. He earned the starting job in the spring and in the early camp going into that season. But yeah, first game he started was a complete and utter failure. Complete and utter failure. Like we went to Pittsburgh, Kansas, and played Pittsburgh State, and he just had probably the worst game he's ever had in his life. And so, I just talked to him about, hey, we know who you are. We know your capability. Just be you. And he came back and obviously led us to 14 straight victories in a national championship. So unbelievable human being. Very difficult for him to leave Ferris. He was in tears, and this time last year, he was still a Bulldog. He basically last year there were 2 portal windows. and he bypassed the first portal window. Like, I'm not going to leave. And then as time progressed, I mean, the money became so crazy, and people, I mean, even when you're not in the portal, these agents are trying to make a dime off you, and they won't leave you alone, and they wouldn't leave him alone. And so I get it. It was challenging. Spent a lot of time in discussions with what was best for him, and eventually, he left and was really sad about that. Even I remember when we had I think maybe late March, we had the parade for the national championship because we waited till it was warmer, maybe even early April. And I met with him and his mom after that. We were the last people there at the parade, and walked out of there together to our cars. And he was going to go on a couple official visits, and he was just so sad about it. And so he's Ferris through and through, still is, and Ole Miss as well. And, people around here, they still, now there's a lot of people that are Ole Miss fans now. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no doubt. I definitely am a Trinidad fan, always will be. And I'm curious with your philosophy on the portal and how you treat it. Because obviously, like when you're having to replace guys like that, and you've often said we don't rebuild, we develop, and that you've always made that clear, and you've always done that. When you are having to replace a bunch of guys like that, does it make you feel like, okay, we need to get into the portal a little bit more? Or is it truly like, hey, our guys are our guys, and that's how we're going to do things, even though we are trying to replace guys that might be, 22-year-olds that are going into the portal that now, hey, we got to play maybe an 18 or 19-year-old kid now?
Yeah, I think probably we're different than most people philosophically when it comes to that. So first off, we lost 5 offensive guys to the portal. We took zero portal guys that started for us. So we had 11 offensive starters. All 11 came to Ferris, stayed at Ferris, and won a national championship. So, it goes to just the quarterbacks, So Wyatt Bauer had to be ready. He's a redshirt freshman. Trinidad left. Chase Carter had to be ready. Chase Carter saved our season, really, because when Wyatt got banged up, Chase was like a superstar. He was a redshirt sophomore. And then, Carson had to be ready to be, plugging in at certain spots, And so I truly believe that the portal's only to maybe fill a little mild potential weakness, trying to forecast what need you might have. So I'm not really interested in just like plugging holes with portal guys that are 1-year guys. I mean, we don't want that. We did have some portal guys that started on defense, but they were here quite a few years, So if I was going to take a portal guy, I want to take younger guys, or somebody, if it is a 1-year guy, that's a guaranteed surefire starter, which we would take that. But offense is a little bit different philosophy than defense because we have our system. So I could pencil in now who our guys would be for 2026. We lost Carson to Michigan State. We lost Dane to South Carolina, just on offense alone. But last year when we lost Bryce George to Iowa and Lawrence Attar to Michigan, 2 offensive linemen, I could have penciled in right then who was going to be, the guys that took those jobs. And it was Dane Arnett, who played left tackle, and Ben Prestula, who played left guard. And truthfully, our offensive line was probably better than it's ever been. And so that's building a program, right? So, but you got to be sensitive to the future too. So, we're taking a big class this year of freshmen. A lot of people are like, well, I want 22, 23-year-old guys rather than 17, 18-year-old guys. But, we're a developmental program. They're every year when we get in the playoffs, all of a sudden somebody comes shining that we're like, whoa, And we knew Chase could have been a superstar, as a starting quarterback, but he shined like crazy towards the end of the season. And, Jake Price was a running back, probably going into the year fourth string. And then towards the end, like everybody's like, wow, that kid is a super player, And so, that's just the growth we want. And that's what Trinidad did. That's what that's what Zach Sealer did, who, is a superstar for the Miami Dolphins now. It took him 30 games to play. So that's our recipe. Not to say we're just trying to stall everybody's chances to play, but, there's a time when, people are patient, people are determined, and people are growing, I'll be honest with you. We got a couple kids in the portal just, January 12th. And they're in the weight room with our guys right down there in that room. And they're like, oh my gosh. And they're coming from Division I schools. And they're like, oh my gosh, your guys are so strong. We can't lift with them. And I'm like, just be patient. It'll happen. But, so I say this about our guys, okay? Like strength wise, as good as anybody in the nation, any level, as strong as anybody in the nation. Okay. Speed wise, Chase Carter, and I'm not lying about this, Chase Carter is the fastest quarterback on earth. Like nobody can run as fast as Chase Carter, who plays that position. Okay. Nobody. Like, he's still recovering from his toe injury from the playoffs, but I think if he gets that toe healthy, he's going to run like 10-200 meters this year. Like he's crazy fast. He ran 10-4 in high school. So we're as fast. Tariq Brad is as fast as any receivers that that Trinidad threw to at Ole Miss. Tariq can run as fast as those guys. So there's a lot of guys that are really that fast and that strong. So then the probably the deficiency is height typically. Some guys are just really short and can roll, and our O-line is probably a little shorter. But I always just say, your feet hit the ground at the same spot. So I don't know why height means all that much. So
yeah. Well, I feel like when you look at least the smaller levels, as far as you go to D2, I'm a D3 guy. It feels like the very best teams across the board are the ones that just develop high school guys and then supplement here and there with the portal. Obviously, Division I, that's different. That's an entirely different game. Sometimes, to me at least, it feels like. But you mentioned, offensively, setting the single season scoring record with 844 points. It just sounds ridiculous to even say. But, one of the things that I love watching you guys is how you handle quarterback run and how you guys, continuously, use power read as far as one of your core system or core run schemes that you use. I'm curious, kind of where that comes from as far as your philosophy is concerned. Has that always been a part of who you are? Are you always someone that says, hey, we have to be able to run the quarterback, especially in this league where it is a very challenging normal conference schedule? Is that always kind of been a part of who you are? And where do you kind of draw inspiration from when you're trying to figure out creative ways to get the quarterback involved in the run game?
Yeah, always. And when I say always, I'm going back to 1987. So I know people are like, can you stop talking about how old you are, but so it goes to 1987 with Chris Kohlinger, who was a superstar athlete, quarterback. And then after Chris Kohlinger, I had Corey Crockett, who was a great quarterback. This is back in my Montrose days. And Corey went to Hawaii. Paul Johnson was at Hawaii, who, was a great option coach, that obviously went to Georgia Southern and Georgia Tech and those kind of places. And so, like Corey Crockett, might have been as good as any quarterback, running the ball at that time in high school in the whole nation. And then I got Jeff Clough at Montrose, who, he could run, he was third in the state in the 100 meters his his junior year. So he could run like crazy. So yeah, it's like it's been it. That's it. That's it. Run the quarterback, run the quarterback, run the quarterback. So I mean, Jason Vanderlaan is the leading rusher for a quarterback in the history of college football. In the history. He rushed for 5,950 some yards. 5,950 some. My only regret is he didn't rush for 6,000 yards still. So I could have probably made that happen. But so that's how it's been. That's how it's always been. I mean, it's, people are saying all the time, well, I don't have a running quarterback. I can't run your stuff. And I'm like, well, you know what? I remember at Muskegon, like on Sundays, meeting with Elon Banks and EJ. So EJ was a seventh grader when he started coming in on Sundays working with me, with his quarterback skills. So it's just like developing a point guard or developing a pitcher or a catcher. In baseball, you got to have those positions. You got to have players. And I'm never going to have somebody that can't run. I mean, it's just bottom line. It's never going to happen. We're going to run this year. Wildly, our quarterbacks rushed for over 2,000 yards. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
Just our quarterbacks rushed for over 2,000 yards. So, I think that Chase started maybe 5 games and rushed for like 1,100 yards. And Wyatt rushed for like 800 yards. And then Carson rushed, for quite a few too. So it was, it's just the way we're built, and in simple terms, because I'm not very smart, in simple terms, when the quarterback's running the ball instead of handing the ball off. So if he's handing the ball off, okay, then you only have, 9 blockers. You got a ball carrier and you got a quarterback that just handed the ball off. Whereas if the quarterback's carrying the ball, you got 10 blockers. And so just my mindset of, common sense football, we're box counters. We're just checking to see, where the availability is, and we're just taking it. And that's how we build things, Steve Annese is my son. My oldest son is my offensive coordinator. Him and I work philosophically to do those kind of things. And I'm just working on clinic presentations because I'm going to Orlando this weekend to speak on these topics. So, but yeah, it's unique. But I just, I'm not crazy about Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, from a overall skill, but they have won Super Bowls with him. And how does it happen? Because he's a versatile athlete. And, there's a lot of them in the NFL that are that way. Even Mendoza was that way, when you're in a situation where you're, whatever it was, 4th and goal from the 5 or whatever it was, and you run quarterback draw. All right. That changes the scope of, what you can do. It changes what defenses do. It changes what offenses threaten to do. And so, yeah, it's huge. It's an unbelievable thing to have an edge on. And so I'll always have a great running quarterback.
Well, and it certainly it opens up everything else, because teams typically are like, hey, if this kid's going to run the ball all over us, we're going to play him. We're going to play some more man. We're going to get an extra guy in the box. And then it's like, guess what? The other, kid that runs the 10-4 out there, we're just going to go throw him the ball out there and probably be okay, and truly utilizing all 6 backs in the backfield and getting that extra hat in the run game is always incredible. But another team that definitely runs the quarterback by design a little bit is Harding, who you guys played here in the championship game. And I think it was you that said, I'd rather play Notre Dame than play these guys, which I love that quote. But, going into that game with a team like that, what was it about them that made you say, hey, I'd rather play, the Irish than go play these guys?
Well, first off, I picked a team from out of state. I could have said Michigan, but that was a tough time for them. Michigan State didn't have a coach. And so I'm like, all right, I'll just pick Notre Dame. And nobody will really think about it. The Notre Dame people went nuts. So, yeah. It's a joke, people. I'm trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman's great. I don't really, I'm like Mike Denbrock's a buddy of mine. They're offensive coordinator. So, yeah, that was not serious, but in truthfulness though, like I, we won the semifinal game. We had the early game for the first time since we've been here. So we played at 12:30, and the second game is at 3:30. And so as soon as we won, like I was like, I was a Cutsdown fan like you wouldn't believe. So yeah, I've always hoped that Harding isn't a team that we play. And truthfully, they've been in our region, since we played them in 17. So they've always been in our region. So we had to play them earlier. It had to be in the regional finals or, before that. And so then they changed the super regions. And now all of a sudden they're in super region 4. And then what happens? We make it to the finals, which I guess give the NCAA credit for, or, redrawing those regions and getting super region 3, a little bit spread out, but super region 3 has won the national championship, I think, every year since 18. So, or maybe 19, but, yeah, their system is scary. It's scary, and give our defense credit to be able to control it, give our offense credit to make early scores. If you're behind against them, it's scary. If they control the clock against you, we've played them 2 straight years now. We've had better time of possession than them, and that's huge. And we've had obviously more yardage than them, and so that's huge. So scoring early against them and putting pressure on them is a good formula, but it's not easy to do because they can just control the clock and wipe you out.
And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts about how they've decided to structurally handle, with Coach Simmons and Coach Moat down there. Now Coach Simmons is now I believe the general manager of football. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on if that's something that you've ever looked into doing as a part of your program. Obviously, you are the general manager to the head coach, and obviously deep into the scheme as well. Is that something? I'm curious, just your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So give Harding credit to keep a guy like Paul Simmons around. So ironically, I can say this now because I promised him at the time I wouldn't say anything, but ironically, the day before we played, because we've played him now 4 times, and we talk quite a bit, and so the day before we played, he came to me and he said, "Coach, I want to tell you something, but I want you to keep it private. Can I trust you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I won't tell a soul," and he says, "This is my last game." I'm like, "Oh man," and it hit me in my heart, like, that's a really good football coach. That's a really unbelievable program. It's heartbreaking. But then he told me why, and I'm like, dude, you're doing the right thing then. He said his son, I think it was at LSU, maybe it's at home, but his son plays for Arkansas, and he blocked a punt, and they scored a touchdown, and nobody was there to celebrate with his son, and that's a dad that's like, man, I just want to be there for my sons, and he's got a daughter too, but so he had a son in high school that we've offered, by the way, and a son in college playing at the University of Arkansas, and it's heartbreaking for him to not be able to be there for them, and he missed, like he said, he missed like 3 games for his younger son and missed all the Arkansas games. So he wanted to just take a step back. He shared that with me on Friday, and it was hard, because he hadn't even really talked to anybody about it, but he wanted to share it with me, and I said, it's hard losing a great coach, great head coach. It's hard for our profession to lose people who, prioritize, giving to young people and serving young people and putting, the right things first. And so that's heartbreaking, but also then you think and say, man, the dude made the right decision by being there for his kids. And for me, I'm going to ask him here soon, is it easier to be a general manager? Are they paying you enough? One.
Yeah, right.
Is it easier? Two. And three, then, maybe I won't have to deal with all the head coaching stuff because it's pretty wild dealing with a million things as a head coach.
Right. No kidding. I'm just curious if that's kind of, we've seen that certainly grown at the Division I level. And I mean, every team feels like now they got a general manager. And I'm curious to see if that comes down to, more in the Division II level here soon. But
yeah.
I want to talk about your journey a little bit here. You were a receiver at Alma College and a former D3 guy. I'm wondering what your recruiting process was like when you were coming out of high school. What was that like at that time, and how did you end up at Alma College?
Oh, goodness. So this is a good story. So the head coach was Phil Brooks, and he was from my hometown, Corona. And my dad was a high school head coach for 26 years. So Phil Brooks is one of his good friends. And so I was 5'9", 135 my senior year playing quarterback at Corona High School. And so in really simple terms, there was one school that really recruited me, and that's because my dad asked him to recruit me. They probably took me thinking there's just no way that we'll take this guy or we'll play this guy, but we'll take him just to, just add to our enrollment and our roster. And so I said, gosh, I don't know where I want to go to college. My dad says, well, you're going to Alma. I'm like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, that's where you're going. And so that was my recruitment. That was my story of my recruitment, that my dad just told me where I was going. And then, it was an unbelievable experience. Like, I always say this about, being a college coach now is, the dynamic of just being like connected with people for the rest of your life, you're the friends that you make in college. And it's wild. Like I think I had 8 former teammates be at the national championship game for me, and it's for more than me, but it's like so cool, and I got a group chat with the Alma guys, and there's a lawyer on there, there's 2 doctors on there, there's all these professional people, and I'm just a coach. And then they're all athletes, so how athletes, former athletes, live vicariously through the coach.
Yeah, right.
And so now everybody gets to live vicariously through me, which it's silly because I'm just coaching a game, and all these guys, they're saving, saving people's lives through giving surgeries or being doctors or those kind of things, and I'm just a football coach, and yet they're like, man, you got the greatest job ever. And I'm like, oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good.
So yeah, that's cool. But I was I wasn't any good, but I was a good athlete in regards to playing multiple sports in high school. Very similar to Trinidad's situation, but not his athleticism. But I was probably faster than him. I'm going to say that. I was probably faster in college than him. I could run, but I was still a little dude. And I caught touchdown passes. Like I think I had, maybe 21 for my career or something. So it was fun. But we weren't any good, and I wasn't any good. So that's the story of the Alma College world.
I love that. Did you always know you want to be a football coach? Is that something that you knew you were going to do? What was that first experience like when you finally got to, be a coach for the first time? Was it everything you ever dreamed of, or where did that kind of? I know your dad was a legendary coach in the high school world. What was kind of that first experience like?
Yeah. So I have a sister and three brothers, and all of us brothers we all played football, basketball, and baseball. All of us, basically our favorite sport was the sport we were playing at the time. And then we also played golf. I mean, we could do a lot of things just because that's how we were raised. And so, you know, my dad always said, don't get into education, because it was hard for him. He was 26-year high school head coach, but, he's an administrator. He was also a head basketball coach, as was I for a while. He coached a lot of sports, and he was the AD, assistant principal. The field there in Crun is named the Nick Annese Field, so it's pretty cool. That's where Wyatt and Terry played their high school ball,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
that's a good story. But so I just being around the community of Corunna and Owasso, we'd go out and maybe go to Kmart or go to McDonald's, which I think we just got a McDonald's back when we were in high school, and anywhere we'd go, like people would stop him and just talk to him about the impact he had on their lives, and so it's like, wow, what a profession, right? I mean, it can't be greater than that, and it really, truthfully, people say that we as educators impact more people in 1 year than most people do in a lifetime. So I believe that, and I still believe it. And so the mindset of that, just being able to do that, was just so appealing to me, and that's what I always wanted to be. Like from fifth grade, I remember doing a career exploratory paper, and that's what I wrote about is being a teacher and a coach. So that's what I wanted to be. But my career has taken me into spots that I never thought I would be. I always just wanted to be there, in that high school building, where my kids went to school and that kind of stuff. I had the good fortune, my kids always say it's a bad fortune, but I had the good fortune of being the head basketball coach for my three oldest. So they said it was a pain, but at the time I was a head coach at Muskegon and the head football coach at Muskegon and the head basketball coach where they went to school, which was Whitehall. So I was able to do a lot. And what a perfect scenario for me to go from high school to college when, my three oldest were done. My youngest still was in school, but at least, I was basically around my three oldest all the time, and that was really cool. And then I never thought about really what I wanted to coach. Like I coached football, basketball, and baseball for quite a few years, and then I transitioned to track because as a football coach I try to get my guys to run track, and but I never knew that I wanted to be like a college football coach. I never really imagined that that's something that ever would happen, and it happened, and it's been a blessing.
Yeah, then you go to Grand Rapids Community College, and maybe this is an open wound that I shouldn't, or a wound that I shouldn't open. But in 2011, you guys finished 11-0, and were ranked number 3 in the country, but didn't get to go to the top bowl game. I'm curious if you could explain to me what the situation was there and why you guys didn't get to go play for a national championship, despite I believe already won a national championship at that point, but then still not getting to being 11-0, not getting to do that. I'm just
Well, in so we were a non-scholarship JUCO. So
okay.
when we won the national championship in 9, like there was also a scholarship JUCO team. We played scholarship JUCOs. It really wasn't something that people necessarily knew. But so when we did that in 9, I think Cam Newton was the quarterback at Blen. They won the scholarship national championship. But a non-scholarship team could go to the national championship. So but it kind of made people look bad a little bit. So when we were undefeated there, there was basically two scholarship teams. Can't remember who they were, but two scholarship teams that they placed 1 and 2, even though we should have been 1 or 2. And it's just a decision that a committee makes. It's not any formula for it. And so they chose to put two different teams, 1 and 2, and then put us at 3. So that's the way it is. But
yeah,
it was a hard deal because we were really good, and we were really good every year there. We were in the league with Iowa Western, and Iowa Westerns won it, I think, 3 out of 4, and Scott Strohmeyer's still there, who is my buddy now, but we coached against each other. We coached each other 4 times in 3 years, and we got them 3 out of 4. So we were really good, and they were a scholarship team. So we were really good. But that was unfortunate. And then nobody wanted to take us into a bowl game. So, because that's kind of random, they just, people have their own bowl games and they choose. Well, we thought we'd go back to the Mississippi Bowl, and then they said, no, we don't want you. And part of the reason is we went there and played Mississippi Gulf Coast and the year before, and it was a wild game. I mean, crazy game, but we really brought them down to the wire. So Mississippi Bowl's like, well, let's not bring them because they're kind of scary. So we were really good, man, really good. We had a lot of talent, and a lot of kids that went on and played really high level Division I football.
I'm curious from your seat. You've been a champion at high school, champion JUCO, obviously 4-time champion at Division II. What do you think is the constant with all of those that makes good teams? Because every level there's good teams, but to be a champion at every level, I don't know if there's a whole lot of people that can say that they've done it at all those different levels. What do you think from your seats the constant?
Love. I say this all the time, but love is the catalyst of our greatness. So our core values are faith, order, love, and discipline. And love is the most critical part of that. And, you can say it another way and talk about culture. But, you don't have a great culture without love. I mean, it's like having a great family, love, or having a great, organization, love, doing what you guys have done. The way you guys do it, I mean, when our SID says, hey, these guys want you on, well, heck yes, I'm going on with those guys. You know what I mean? Because you guys are good dudes and you're doing the right thing for college football and for you guys' brand. You do it with class. And so it's all about love, like even at Ferris, if I said, why our athletic program's strong, well, our coaches love each other, like a lot of times there's resentment, we got in my office alone, you can't see them all, but there's a lot of national championship trophies in here now. And people walk in and maybe it's volleyball, which is unbelievably good, by the way, or soccer or basketball or whatever sport that walks in here. And there might be resentment because of our success, but no, there's all love. So, love is powerful. Love helps you grow. At the end of the day, like there's just a level of, of just belief, like we won the national championship on December 20th. On December 21st, we flew back. Okay. So we're off a little bit, but school's starting on January 12th and our strength coach, Colton Haynes, who I love, by the way. So he says, what do you want to do like January 12th? And I'm like, dude, listen, normally I would say, let's let them get back in school and let's not start the strength program until we have a meeting. And normally I would say that, but I'm like, okay, let's test them. I said, Colton, just say the strength program starts Monday morning, January 12th at 6 a.m. and see how many guys show up. And we had 80 dudes there. Like, it's crazy, right? And so it's just a program. It's just a culture. It's just, what the other guys have done, in the past to build it, like it started with Vanderlaan and Zimmer and Lampman, and it went to Sealer and Tavier and those guys. And it just constantly, constantly just is handed down, and that's a quality of like, a program, a successful program, but it's, it's individuals as well. So, like if I said, what's it take to be a high performer? Okay. And this is kind of me standing on my soapbox here and saying what a high performer looks like. Well, a high performer is around high performers. You know what I mean? So if we were in a math class and we took you and we're in an algebra class and you're like a brutal algebra student, but they put you in the advanced algebra class, you would be uplifted. Like you're going to be uplifted. You have to be. The standard's too high. And so if you're not, if you're not meeting the standard, then you're falling. And so here, man, if you don't meet the standard, as a high performer, you fall, you're done. And you're exposed because everybody knows it, and so that's the key here. But it starts with love. Love is power. Love can help people even in their long-term health, as much as, not drinking or not smoking or not sleeping effectively. Like love is a powerful thing. And so I try to, emphasize that with our guys. You got to be connected at the most extraordinary level. And we, that's how I've always been. Like I coach because I love young people, but some other people, talking about it as a business. And I'm like, no, it is not a business. It's a game, and it's about human relationships and growth. And if you as a coach aren't smart enough to use this beautiful game to grow people spiritually, mentally, emotionally, socially, shame on you, because that's the ultimate, ultimate purpose of the game is to grow young people and help them be productive members of society.
Man, you got me fired up right now. I feel like I need to go put the pads on and go hit somebody now. I love that so much. I think a lot of teams get that wrong too. I feel like there's a lot of programs in all levels of every sport and every business too. I feel like there's programs, businesses all over the place that get that wrong, and it feels like the top businesses, the top teams, whatever the case is, the ones that love each other the most are the ones that typically are the ones that are holding up trophies at the end of the year. So
yeah, and I fight. Sorry to interrupt you, but I fight for a kid who has failed, like literally fight. Like, I might like deal with our president or our Office of Student Conduct or our AD. There's times like they're like, no, we can't, that kid's screwing up too much. And I'm like, man, we can make it. Now there's a certain level where I tell the kid, dude, you're done. You know what I mean? But I will fight to the bitter end to help a young person, because to me, that's just life altering and it's world changing. Like we need to help underprivileged people, and most people that struggle in our life are, grow up in challenging environments. And if you're not willing to extend yourself, and there might be, there's a level of discipline, but like, once the standard is raised, then young people really, know that they've got to meet that standard. But sometimes they fail to meet the standard, and then we just got to grow them and give them opportunities. And so my greatest victories aren't with, kids, and I'll say it bluntly, suburban kids that have everything in life. My greatest victories are with kids that grow up in challenging environments that, don't have a lot in life and who make it, and there's a lot of them. I just think about Ben Hinamanu, who's a superstar human being now and very successful in business endeavor, but at the time, came here with some real challenges and just superstars, man. I just 2 weeks ago I was in Florida recruiting, and Robert Thomas III, who was a player here until 18. He's a police resource officer in Mount Dora High School. And so I'm recruiting, and he goes, "Hey, can I ride with you recruiting?" I said, "Yeah, take a day off and ride with me." And so it was a Wednesday, and he rode with me, and we had the greatest time ever. Like, I'm laughing like crazy, but I'm so proud of him because he's a police officer, man. He wears a police uniform, and there was a time where people around here were like, "Man, Robert isn't going to make it," and he made it, and now he's like a productive member of society, and he's serving humanity. Like, he's serving humanity by being a police officer. So
I think Saban was given a really good interview one time or a press conference, and he was talking about how he's like, you always want me to talk about how we're going to, punish the kid. Are we going to kick him off the team? And it's like, I always ask, are they going to be better off if we kick him off the team? And then he was talking about a player who he was in trouble, whatever, but they kept him on the team. And he's like, I'm pretty sure that guy played 12 years in the NFL and owns a business now. It's like, yeah, that's like the whole point of this whole thing, right? Is to help kids that, might be at a disadvantage when they're 18 years old, or the 18 to 22-year-old kids screwed up. Really, it's like, no kidding, right?
100%. I watched that interview. I know exactly the interview you're talking about, and that just reinforced, how I think, and the guy that got in trouble was at Michigan State when coach was at Michigan State at the time, and he made a great life for himself.
Yeah, I'm last couple of questions here for you. One of the things that I've done at the end of each episode is ask every coach, and this is kind of selfishly to see who I should get on next, kind of. And I'm wondering if there's any coaches, at any level that you respect the most, or that you see do it the right way and build their programs the right way. Does anybody come to mind when you think about that?
That's a really good question. So one of the best leaders that I know is Peter Sturzman at Hope College. Super communicator, unbelievable leader, great friend. Learn a lot from him. I had him come in to speak to my team on leadership. I did like a leadership seminar for basically, it was 6:30 in the morning on Thursdays. And I told the team, if you want to be a leader, you have to come to this. If you don't care, don't come. I don't want you here. Just be a good follower. But he came in, and I think he had to leave at 4:30 in the morning to come here. But he's an unbelievable leader. Super guy. I think Paul Simmons has a unique perspective on spirituality and those kind of things there at Harding. He comes to mind quickly, and he's done things. I love Colby Carthel. He's Stephen F. Austin. I think he's a great leader and a great program builder. I don't know if you want a FCS coach on here, but he's a super one. There's so many at the highest level that are super, but I think Kirby Smart has a great perspective. He's a bright guy, and I think he's rooted in what college football should be all about still, and fighting the good fight. So I think he's a super one. That's off the top of my head. But I also have guys that have coached for me in the past, played for me and coached for me, that are just unbelievable. And now I'm going to make people feel bad, but I'll start with the NFL. Dylan Roney is with the Chargers still. I think it might change here in the next couple of days, but he did interview for the defensive coordinator's job, and he played for me in 17 and coached for me in 18, and now he's been in the NFL. It's super story. So he's incredible. And another one of my former players, coaches, is Travis Russell. He would be super guy to have on.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. He was just at Michigan last year. And so I can't tell you where I think he's going to land this year because I haven't seen it to be official, but he's great, great as well. So all those guys are unbelievable. I'll leave it at that. But a lot of my former coaches are great. I'll say one more, but he's a high school coach. Is Landon Grove at Grand Rapids West Catholic. He played for me here. He was the youngest coach in the history of Michigan high school football to win a state championship, and now he's won 2. So I'll leave it at that.
I love that. Last question for you here. What is one piece of advice that you would give to the next generation of coaches?
Well, it's common sense. Just do it for the right reason. Be passionate, passionate about serving young people. We're servant leaders. One of the guys that inspired me as a servant leader was Jack Sugars, who, coached for I don't know how many years, 50 some years. And he coached for me since basically 2009. And he's just retiring. So he did it for the right reasons. He did it to serve young people. He was a head coach at Muskegon Oak Ridge, and then I talked him into being. Basically, I told him, I want you to come to GRCC with me and be like a life coach. And so that's what he had passion about, to be a life coach. So I steal that word, that phrase, a life coach, because that's what everybody should be. Like, be a life coach. Be somebody who's willing to just do whatever you can to help a young person be successful. And that's what we do here. And that's, if anybody asked, what do you need to do first to be an assistant of Tony Annese, you have to be a life coach. You got to be willing to serve others, serve your players, be engaged with your players, make it a part of your family. And I've done that with good and bad. I've had some really bad stories that I could tell where I've tried hard. But I say they're really bad stories, but you truly only fail if you don't try. And so you have to try. You have to try to save young people, help them navigate through this challenging time, and try to make them be uplifted to be, great people over time. And so that's the advice I'd give anybody who's getting into the profession.